Good evening and welcome to the December 12th, 2023 Zoning Board of Appeals regular monthly meeting for the Village of Ossining. This is a public hearing that is quasi judicial, so as such, I want to remind those in the building and of the in-person rules well as the rules for those that are on our Zoom platform. We ask that if you are here in the audience that you have something to speak about, and you need to discuss it with another audience member, we ask that you take it down the hall towards the front door. The reason being, if you talk outside of the conference room, your conversation will echo back into this room. We are still, when you come before the board, you must provide your name and your address. Remember, you are addressing the board. You are not speaking to the applicant or their representative. We are still using the hybrid format. The public will continue to have the opportunity to see and hear the meetings live through Zoom and provide comments during the appropriate time. Members of the public, in order to participate via Zoom, please do the following. Use the raise hand feature at the appropriate time if you would like to make a comment. The feature is located at the bottom of the screen, or press *9 if you're using your phone. The host will see that your hand is raised or that you have pressed *9 and will unmute those waiting one at a time so that you can speak. Comments can also be emailed during the public hearing to the Village Planning Department at PLAN@villageofossining.org. The meeting will be recorded and a transcript of the meeting will be available at a later date. So there are a couple of ground rules just to ensure that we have a clear recording, so please follow these rules. When you're given access to speak, please state your name and your address. If you are speaking during the public hearing, please limit your comments to the matter which is the subject of the hearing. If any speaker is inappropriate, they will be immediately cut off and access denied. To the board members, I will call on you one at a time to speak to avoid everyone speaking at once. And please state your names to make the minutes clear. We will use roll call voting for purposes of board motions, and this is to once again ensure that the record is clear. Our roll call will be done at this time, and I'm going to ask if Ms. Ramey will give, Ms. Maddie?
Miss Maddie.
Will lead us in the roll call.
Good evening. Kyle Aberizic.
Here.
Olga Montez. Here. Michael Spall.
Here.
Bob Durayo.
Here.
Brian Granoff.
Hi, here.
And Chair Cheatham.
Here. Also with us today is Maddie Zahach, our Assistant Village Manager, Joseph Agostinelli, our Building Inspector. I believe on Zoom is Jamie King.
Yep.
And Taryn Ramey, our Assistant Land Use Attorney. So let's get started if we're ready to get rolling on this evening. So we have approval for the minutes from the September 14th, 2023 and October 12th, 2023 meetings. May I have a motion to accept the minutes with any necessary corrections?
So moved, Kyle. Second, Brian.
If there is no objection to the approval of the minutes, and by unanimous consent, the minutes will be
Wait a second. I was here for that. Right? If not, I can't second. Or,
I think you were here.
You were here for one, you weren't here.
Yeah.
for October.
yeah. I'm gonna set that.
So
I wasn't here.
Olga.
There we go.
Olga moves. Brian seconds. All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. First on our agenda, ZBA. Yep, ZBA 23-2023. Oh, 3 Bellevue Avenue, Joseph Baresi.
Good evening. My name is Gene Vetrano. Excuse me. I'm with the Site Design Consultants. We're engineers and designers for Mr. Baresi. Also in attendance is Mr. Baresi. His sister was also his attorney, Ms. Adio, and Tom McMahon from Site Design Consultants. We're here before the board through referral from Mr. Agostinelli for a few variances to demolish an existing deteriorated concrete garage, replace it with a new garage, and also to add a fence to the north part of the property, to add new stairs to access the front of the house, and to do grading, seeding, and cleanup of demolished concrete and the building materials. Just as a background, the building is a non-conforming lot. It's an S75 zone. Parcel is only 5,000 square feet. It's 50 by 100. So we're starting out as an existing non-conforming. The home was built in 1954. Mr. Baresi purchased it in 2016. And in an effort to start cleaning up the site, he started doing some work. He demolished some deteriorated concrete stairs that were on the north. You can see it right there, right the north of the garage. And at some point, Mr. Groves, right, Greg Groves, he visited the site. He issued an order to remedy violations. Construction was stopped. And I believe at that time, Mr. Baresi had retained another design firm. I believe he even also submitted applications and plans. The process went on for a while. I don't know where it stopped and why it stopped, but at some point also, Mr. Baresi had court hearings, which were attended by his sister and himself. And we were brought on board the beginning of this year to try and resolve all of the issues. So to clear up the violations, to knock down that garage because it is in pretty bad shape. I'm sure Mr. Gastinelli has been by that site a few times, you can see it. So we want to knock down the existing garage, put a new garage in its place, just a little bit larger footprint. Again, we want to clean up the site. We want to put new concrete stairs to access the front of the existing home. And then there are other violations that need to be cleared up, which will be included in the final plans. The existing front porch, it has some structural work that was completed without permit. There are stairs with no rails on it, so we'll address those separately. But it'll all be part of the same submission to the building department, hopefully after we're granted the variances that were requested. Do you want me to list the variances or just read off of your paperwork back to us? How does that work?
Why don't you go through the sheet if you could?
So that sheet, so what happened was Mr. Gastinelli provided that sheet. We received an email back on November the 8th that we were not going to be able to appear before this board and that we had to clear up to provide a new zoning data chart, which we did. So we provided a new existing site plan, proposed site plan, and then we provided a new zoning data chart. So that's not it. Okay.
Is this it?
That is it, correct. And if I could pull my sheet out. Hold on. Hey, give me a minute. Okay. Thank you. So again, if you take a look at the zoning data sheet, it is an existing non-conforming lot. Code requires 7,500 square feet. Mr. Baresi's lot is 5,000 square feet. I also want to note that if you take a look at your zoning map, his parcel is the last one in that zone. It's just one up from the corner, and his is the smallest parcel in that particular zone. So we're also, again, working with a non-conforming lot. The lot width is only 50 feet, where 75 is required by code. And then I'm a little confused. I thought I read in your code that the setback for an accessory structure is 5 feet off of any property line. Yet it is,
But it's not supposed to be in the front yard.
Not in the.
oh, right, now, but the side yard were okay, so it's the front yard, right? So the existing garage is actually 5.2 feet off of the front property line. We're proposing to move it back a foot because it helps us with our retaining walls and the grading of the property. So we're proposing to put it at 6.2. And again, because we're an undersized lot, we really don't have too much leeway on working with that setback. Again, the building coverage. So the code allows 30% coverage. The existing is at 35.2. We're requesting to increase that to 35.7. And again, it's basically by changing the footprint of the garage. The existing garage is 319 square feet. We're proposing 330. And I went on the survey. if you take a look at the garage of the original survey, it's kind of a trapezoid rather than a rectangle. So we would like to square that off, you know, put a garage in that's 20 feet deep by 16.5 feet wide.
So
So
that's
that's-
a question.
Yes,
You said 35.2 is what it is, and it's going to,
35.7,
okay.
right?
So I'm just wondering, am I looking at the wrong zoning data sheet? This says 43.3.
Right, so this is the corrected one. So that was the email we received on
Oh, okay.
November the 8th, yeah. Because what happened was, I guess Mr. Baresi had previously filled out the application perhaps last year or the year before. He submitted that entire packet. We didn't get a chance to review it. So when we reviewed it, we went back, we did the calculations,
Right.
and these are the corrected calculations.
So
Thank you.
the picture we just saw before of the garage, is this new garage gonna be exactly in the same footprint?
It's
Same
gonna be
driveway?
about, well, it's gonna be about 11 foot larger square footage wise, and then we were hoping to widen the driveway a little bit. Again, 'cause we have an issue with parking. You know, we're required by code to have 2 off-street spaces. If you take a look at the property line, there's only 6.2 feet from the property line to the front of the garage, and we can't push it any further back to the house.
So it'll be a 2-car garage,
Not really, it'll be car, yeah, 1 car and a half, so.
okay?
I think there's a plan that shows the existing layout and
Yeah.
where they're proposing.
Right,
It's
so
the
that's,
11, the November
that's the
21st.
proposal.
one. I
Yes.
was looking at the wrong one.
yeah.
Yeah,
If you look
that's-
above it on
that's-
that same sheet.
Yeah,
this
you
is
guys
the
are right.
city,
I-
that's
That's
the
the existing
existing.
right there.
And
You're
if you
asking for
notice,
a variance on parking then?
yeah, I guess we need but it's an existing 1 car now, so we'd like to continue that, is what I guess we're requesting. There's no way to get to.
You're not asking for less parking than you already have.
No, we're not asking for less, we're asking to maintain the same and just make the garage a bit wider, that's all, you know, to allow for storage. So and again, if you walk the site, you'll see that there's a difference in elevation, probably close to 15 feet between elevation at street and the elevation at the front of the house. If you, there you go, so if you take a look at,
Yes.
Okay. Another question.
yes,
The max impervious surface coverage.
Yep.
Is not increasing that much. It's only going to 45.1 over our 40% requirement.
yes,
But are you open to using an impervious surface for the widened driveway?
sure,
It's one way to get,
sure, to get it back down, absolutely, yeah.
I wonder what percentage of that changes it, because that might make it,
So if we use it, for example, unilock on the stone dust, is that?
Yeah.
That would
be considered pervious.
Okay, so then that's something that's certainly shield it, just the rest, yeah,
that'll reduce your
sure,
need, the amount of variance needed.
we just make a note of it. Unilock.
So, let me, I guess, just to kind of clarify, so you're asking for, 5,000 square foot.
So the, yeah, the
Variance
portion, yeah, it's
for the entire
existing
lot.
non-conforming, yes.
Okay.
So I'm guessing, do we need a variance for that?
The variance, the request should be pertaining to the work that's being proposed, right? So it would be parking in the front yard, building coverage, impervious surface coverage, the parking because you're building a new structure instead of.
And then the setback, like the front of the
The
setback,
setback.
yeah. And again, we try to push it back a little bit further, but then, you know, we're kind of afraid once we start digging there, you know, we have a retaining wall, it's a pretty massive wall to hold back the building, which is again, you know, 15 or 20 feet higher than street elevation. So I think we have that, I think we have the back of the garage back as far as we can go.
This, unfortunately for Ossining, there's a lot of lots that are very skinny, and so you're forced into non-conforming
Yes,
Right.
situations, and the garage is pre-existing. And the reason you have to come before us for that stuff is because once you demolish an accessory structure,
So
that's
it's pretty
non-conforming
different,
use, you have to find.
I understand.
And it all makes sense, and so it looks like, while you're still asking for variance for front yard setback, you're moving closer to,
Right, we moved
the
it back,
code
we were
as
able
much
to
as
move,
you can.
right, we were able to move it back and
So
forth.
that seems a positive, and it obviously looks like it's going to be a safety issue,
Sure.
and the stairs are obviously a safety issue.
Sure.
So those
Right.
look,
And then if you did walk, excuse me, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I was gonna say, if you did walk the site, you see there's a lot of rubble, that's gonna all be cleaned up, we're proposing seating on the right side and the rear of the property. There's just gonna be a little bit of a paved area on the right side, again, we planned on using Unilock on the right side also.
So is the nature of the structure a single family or a two family?
It's a single family,
Yes, and it's gonna stay a single. family.
absolutely, yep.
Question,
Yes,
how much more space would you need for it to be a two-car garage? Would that fit there?
Too much
yeah,
to do it to.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have,
yeah.
I'm just wondering, because I know you're making it bigger,
yeah,
but
because.
you're not making it bigger enough.
You also consider if you do a two-car garage, you also have to do a curb cut. and it's
Right,
parking lot.
right.
Oh,
And then if you walk the site, you'll see that, I mean, there's an awful lot of earth that has to be removed from that site, and we have to do grading. We're trying to minimize the amount
You
of
also have to-
retaining walls that we
You
have.
have to change the retaining wall slightly?
Well, what's gonna happen is, so the stairs, the southern wall of the stairs, that will now be the retaining wall. And then we're hoping, once we regrade,
Mhm.
that we won't have to put any more retaining walls on the south side of the property. So that's to the right.
You can actually, when you see the width, look at the building next to it, there's not.
There's nothing.
There's not
You
much.
try to get a two-car garage, and that's.
yeah,
believe
there's no room to do any more than you're doing.
There really is not. I
No,
think we,
I just want to be clear.
I think we kind of fit 10 pounds in that flat, not bad.
Thank you.
Just for the benefit of the board, the retaining wall, since the existing retaining wall crosses over the property line, that's the part that's remaining, right? That you're
Yes.
tying into,
Yes, we're gonna tie into that, yes, yep.
So the retaining wall work is all on Mr. Barise's property.
Yes, yep, again, if you take a look at it, if you don't mind, so where the stairs are, this bottom wall. That will then be the retaining wall, and we're gonna try to
Mhm.
gradually slope that grade, so we won't really notice. Anything else, I'm more than happy to try to answer.
Okay,
They just to make sure that the variance requests are the correct variances.
Right. that's a good. So we know it's one parking space. We know it is
Front yard setback,
front yard setback,
building coverage, impervious coverage. I'll try and get that number down. I don't know if I can get it to 40%. And I'll have to do the calculation, so you think we should just.
are we,
that?
well, I was gonna say, are we allowed to conditionally approve that based on them getting new numbers and switching out with it?
That's what I was just talking to. John about.
Okay.
And I think that we could give a condition that we include it, right? Yeah.
Like, can we say,
Right.
if they replace it with the pervious,
We also, we wouldn't know what figure to use in the resolution. If we
Right.
approve
Mhm.
variance is the issue, we'd have to know what figures that you as the board are approving.
because before in the past, we've said no greater than in a prior resolution, so I was wondering if this would be different.
We could
so
use that language.
so, let me just, so right now, the impervious coverage is 40.9.
Yes,
You're asking for 45.1.
yes.
It's not, it's 5.1, so
Yeah.
I'm not
Not much.
opposed to just saying that we would approve the 5.1 with the thought that they will look to decrease that number if possible.
Thank you. Yeah, that'd be great.
You have a request that we have those building coverage.
Yes, and that's, so the building coverage right now is 30%.
That's the required 30.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
The existing is 35.2,
yes,
and you're requesting 35.7.
right, 'cause we're just increasing the footprint of the garage.
11 square feet.
So we're asking for a 5.7%,
Yeah,
variance.
This was parking in the front yard, correct?
and parking in the front yard. Well, the accessory structure is in the front yard.
Right, that's more.
The side yard and front yard, the side yard is, required 5%, you have none. So we're asking for, 5 feet and
We're proposing 5 feet.
Yeah, they're gonna
18.1.
We're
conform.
gonna conform, yeah, the side.
They're going from
both the side,
non-conforming to conforming.
It's the combined side yard setback.
Which is 18 point,
That's the other, right, that's the south. South setback.
so that's what we're looking for, 18.1 feet.
Well, that's what they're proposing.
it actually, yeah, the proposing is 18, but they have, it doesn't look like they have any.
But you know what, on the survey didn't have any setbacks listed, so I know what we're proposing, other than the field measuring it, that
The zoning worksheet says the both side yards should be 28. So they're,
Right, but that's for the main structure.
That's a,
Oh,
that's
the main structure is existing non-conforming, it already, anyway.
This
I was
is
just
a,
trying to
this is the
find that.
accessory structure, which in that section of the code, it says you have to keep 5 feet off the outside.
okay. So, but they're proposing to do that.
Yes,
So is that non-conforming or is it now going to be conforming if they do that?
they would be conforming, correct, because I'm 5 on one side and 18.1 on the other.
Okay, so we don't have to, so the side yard, combined side yard setback
Doesn't apply.
doesn't apply to this. No, it was in your, that's why I was asking if it's in your,
Or the combined?
yeah, combined side yard setback. Exceeding maximum building coverage and combined side yard setback.
Okay, well. That's an error, the combined, if they noticed it, they wouldn't probably need it.
You know, that's why I.
So we-
took a copy
so you
of the
can-
ordinance,
you can- You can approve, I guess, any of the variances you want that apply to this application. Actually, the retaining wall on the staircase though, right, that's changing. That's actually closer to the property line.
That is closer to the property line, so
So that,
that's,
now I'm thinking that because that is part of, if that's a structure, part of the house, then what you're coming up with is the combined yard includes this, the setback from the staircase.
yes.
That's what,
So is that the 18 feet that we're
Yeah.
looking at?
that's correct.
Any other questions from the board? That was confusing. wasn't it?
It's confusing to get here.
If there's nothing else from the board, may I have a motion to open the public hearing.
So move, Bob.
second, oh, Kyle. Almost like.
If there's no objection to opening the public hearing is now open. Is there anyone in the audience? Let's start there, to speak on this project.
Just raise your hand.
Yeah, coming up.
Just trying to be polite.
We're not playing here, we can smile.
Well, walk away. Would you like me to sign in?
Yes, please.
I'll be quick.
You can do it after you.
No problem.
Yep.
I happen to be Joe, Parisi's next door neighbor, so my house is really isn't in the picture, but it's a one sort of to the left.
Can you give your name and address?
Joe Lynch, 1 Bellevue Avenue.
Thank
Joe's been a wonderful neighbor, a wonderful person to have in the neighborhood, wonderful part of the community. As you may know, you may not know, Joe is both a peace officer and also like our police chief, a Marine Corps veteran. All right, he looks after us. He's a great guy to have around. And he happens to also own the property, which is one up from him. Or perhaps he owns it at the bank. But if you drive past the property, you'll see how well kept it is, how well maintained it is. And I just wanted to speak, obviously not about the project, I know a little about that, but I offered no objections. But I just wanted to speak for Joe as to how responsible he is in the neighborhood and how he has carried through on a project, which I think is important for us. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry, I already signed it.
Okay. Sorry.
Tried to catch me.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on this project? Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to speak on this project? If there is no one in the audience and no one on Zoom, I'm gonna have a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close over.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second, Michael.
I know.
If there's no objection to closing the public hearing is now closed. let us go through the area variance, factors. And to be clear, we are looking at one parking space,
Okay, right, for one parking space, yes.
5.1 feet of impervious surface area, 5.7 feet of building coverage.
Percentage,
Say that again?
it's in percentages, not in feet.
Yeah, percentage, sorry. And 18 feet of combined spot side yard.
Setbacks, yeah. That's correct, yep. As well as parking within the. front yard.
That's on your.
Front yard,
And the accessory structure.
you got all that?
We're good, we covered
Okay.
everything. All right, so as this board knows, in determining whether to grant an area variance, it must weigh the benefit to the applicant against any possible detriment to the public health, safety, and welfare. In considering whether to grant the area variance, there are 5 factors. The first factor is whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties.
Absolutely not. I think it's only going to make it better.
I agree.
I think that there's an improvement, with what we've seen in pictures of areas that have been taken down, and it would also improve the safety, for the property.
Agreed.
It wouldn't impact any off-street parking because it's the same
Yes,
parking
it's the same.
conditions.
Same as it was.
The second factor is whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by a feasible alternative other than the requested variances.
Not a lot of leeway on that lot.
No, it's part of a zone where the lots are already non-conforming, restricted with the special.
And as noted in the, by the applicant, it is, in an area where there is no room on either side to increase the property at this point. So it is the smallest piece of property on in the area, and there is no room for growth.
Okay, the next factor is whether the requested variances are substantial.
I think that the requesting the accessory structure in the front yard, which is no longer allowed, is substantial. However, he doesn't really have a choice. And so it would be, I think, a huge disadvantage to that property to try to force another option.
Also, there's an 18-foot combined side yard setback that, they will not be able to get around. It is there, only because of the size and the configuration of the lot.
And it's significant, but it's replacing pre-existing structure minus the 11 square foot increase.
Yes.
So the impacts aren't substantial
They're not substantial.
overall,
Numerically substantial, no
but
impacts.
not in terms of impact. There you go.
I was waiting for the affirmative.
Yeah.
That's
Nice-
number 5.
nice. Okay, the next factor is whether the variances would have an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood.
No, it's a huge improvement. Safety above all.
Right.
Yes, it makes it safer and better.
Safety for the residents and the neighborhood. There was rocks and debris that can be cleaned up and fixed.
I think our community member and neighbor, I just think reinforces that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the final factor is whether the alleged difficulty was self-created.
No,
No.
it's non-conforming pre-existing and it's a small lot.
I think part of that is the, construction prior to coming here was, done by the applicant, but, it was not determined.
Non-determined,
There.
yes. Mhm.
Those are the factors, so the board must make a decision.
Okay, so after going through the factors, let us have a roll call vote.
The motion.
Oh, let us have a motion to accept this application with the necessary improvements, with all, variances, necessary for this project to go forward. Please note that, that you must speak to the building department before any
Yes, we really can. I actually want to try to be just, I guess, like, after the holiday.
I think after the variance is approved, they still have to go to the.
Second and Kyle.
There you go.
Roll call vote, Kyle Aberrizek,
Aye.
Brian Grano,
Aye.
Olga Montez,
Hi.
Michael Spall,
Aye.
Bob Torio,
Aye.
and Chair Chia.
Aye, but Brian didn't. need to
Brian
vote.
is not voting.
You don't get to vote.
I know, I just went with it, but I didn't.
I know, I couldn't stop.
It's solidarity.
All right.
Next one.
Thank you all for your time. Have a
Thank
wonderful
you.
holiday. Thank you.
We're moving on.
I'm ready.
I did the same thing. I was like, I think I'll call with.
Seems to get caught up in the excitement of the
Yeah.
area variance question.
On our agenda is
But based
CBA 24-2023, 142, 144 South Highland Avenue. PM Restaurant is owner in a BD zone district. Applicant is seeking area variance for not providing the minimum 2-foot setback for the driveway and parking area, exceeding the maximum size for the principal and secondary facade business signs, and for the proposal of 3 sides in the freestanding sign when only 2 sides are permitted. Is there anyone here to speak on this application?
Yes.
There you are.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman, members of the zoning board of appeals. My name is Clifford Davis of 200 Mamaroneck Avenue, Suite 602, White Plains, New York, 10601. I am counsel regarding this Popeyes restaurant application. And as the chairwoman stated, we're seeking 4 variances pursuant to Austining Code Section 270-29.d. 3 area variances as to the size, and 1 variance in that the code only permits it on 2 facades when we are seeking the 3. And we're also seeking per Austining Code Section 270-30.8-3 as the setback of the northern driveway, which requires that the ingress and egress be 2 feet away from the property line, and we're 0.8 feet away from the property line, so we need an area variance of 1.4 feet. By way of background, Popeyes is located at 144 South Highland in the general business district. The property is a small area. It's 0.36 acres. It's going to, as we develop it, it's going to feel much more open than it exists right now. The Popeyes proposed is going to be just 1 story. The existing building there is 11,500 square feet, while the proposed building is only 1,990.5 square feet. So it's going to be a much smaller building, hopefully much better for the community. So with regarding the northern driveway, which requires the 2-foot setback, this is an ingress and egress that is just non-conforming. It's existing there right now. We don't propose to change anything. We would need an area variance setback of a mere 1.4 feet. As my engineer, Anthony Stankinelli of Phrenesis Engineering will testify to this board, is that we are not aware of there being any safety issues. No safety issues were ever presented to us, and there will not be any safety issues by continuing to do this. So with regarding that driveway, we just need 1.4 square feet. It exists. We're not looking to change anything, but just to continue it. So let's get on to the bigger items with the signs. Unlike the prior application, this is just for signs, so it's not going to have any impact on the community. Most of the signs are actually painted. So there are 4 variances that we're seeking. So one of them is that only 2 facades are permitted. In this day and age, with the development of the retail you have to put it on all sides. Well, you don't have to, we're asking for it. But it's really, we're asking for it because that's what the retailers, need. Now, there's going to be one facade that's facing Highland Avenue. The second facade is the drive-through window. So that's gonna have a painted sign on it, as you're driving through and you're picking up at the counter. And then the third side that we're seeking is if a person pulls in to the Popeyes and they park their car and they're walking in to either place an order or to pick up an order that they previously placed, that it's going to be painted. So that's why we're asking this board to reflect, this is what Popeyes is developing all throughout the country, and this is what, this is what the retailers, the fast food, wants. And as this board might know, the whole game has changed. People call in advance, and then they're either coming to the window to pick it up, or they're parking their car to get their items. It's not where people are necessarily going to these restaurants to sit there with their kids. It's in and out. Okay, so as set forth on the elevations, the principal facade, which is going to be facing South Highland Avenue, right? That's the one. The code permits 71.75 square feet, and we're asking for a small variance to get it to 74.01 square feet. So on that principal facade, we're seeking a small variance of 2.26 square feet. 2.26 square feet. On the second facade, which is the drive-through, the code permits 35.87 square feet, and we're asking for 74.63 square feet, which is an area variance of 38.755 square feet. So that's on the second one. Then on the third, which is and you'll notice on that second facade, where it says famous Louisiana chicken, where it says paint, where it says famous Louisiana chicken, that's painted on. So it's not going to be jutting out or whatever, it's painted on. Then the third sign variance that we're seeking for really person parking, code permits 35.87 square feet, and we are asking for 123.16 square feet, which is an area variance of 87.285 square feet. And if you notice where it says love that chicken, that's completely painted on, and just that love chicken is 113.14 square feet out of the entirety of the 123.16 square feet. Now, this board had an application that was recently before it, Hair Coffee. And in the Hair Coffee application, when you add up all of those variances for the three sides, it adds up to about approximately 126 feet. In Hair Coffee, which was granted by this board, the variance that this board gave them was 166.28 square feet. So we're asking 40 square feet less than what this board previously granted Hair Coffee. And a key aspect in the Hair Coffee, and it's part of our submission and I attached it to this board, is that a lot of the Hair Coffee was painted, just as here on those walls. So when you go through the balancing test, it's set forth in my letter, but will there, I'll go through it and then you can make your own determination. you know, as to both sets, will there be an undesirable change in the neighborhood? We're putting in a Popeyes, it's much smaller, building. You know, one is over 11,000 square feet, which is there now, which is gonna be torn down, versus our approximately 2,000 square foot building. And it's gonna be an improvement for the village. So we believe that that there's no undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood, and this application is being heavily vetted at the planning board, making sure that all the engineering and traffic issues are addressed, which are really not an issue before this board. With regarding, will there be an undesirable change from the driveway? We don't propose doing anything to what presently exists. So we're asking for 1.4 feet on that, and we are not aware of there being any detriment to the community. Can the benefit be sought elsewhere? We could have come in with not a retail store, but once you come in, you know, with a fast food retail, you have to have the signage. It's just a requirement that goes with the modern fast food place. So I don't think we could have done this without the signage. And the company, whenever they come in, they want to put signs on all three sides, because those are the signs that people are coming in on. And it's less intrusive on the community because a good deal of it is painted. The requested areas are not substantial, because there's no impacts, we believe, on the community. So, you know, if you just look at the size, and, you know, if you look at 1.4 versus 2, and you could do a percentage, but, you know, the case law that I presented, and as your counsel can explain to you, and as she explained on the first application, the real issue is, as a result of these variances, is it going to hurt the community? And we don't think so. The proposed variances will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions. It's not going to have any impact. The 1.4 feet that we're seeking on the driveway, the driveway isn't moving, so we're not changing anything. And the fact that there are going to be signs is not going to have any environmental impact. And the proposed variances are not self-created. As to the 1.4 feet on the driveway, that 1.4 feet is no change. So, you know, we're just looking to keep it as it is. And with regarding the signs, you can't have a fast food place without signs. I think it goes hand in glove. So with me here tonight is Anthony Stankinelli of Phronesis Engineering, and he'll sort of walk through from a more technical standpoint. And then if you have any questions, you can address them to myself or Mrs. Stankinelli.
Can we ask questions now?
Sure.
I mean, I don't think it's gonna impact my decision, so that's why I wanted to ask now.
Sure.
For me, nothing here is an issue except for the three sides, because to me, there's at least two of these that, or three of the 5 factors that you wouldn't need, in my opinion, for that specific variance. And so, that's the only thing I is up for discussion on my end. So if the engineer is gonna change anybody's mind about the other ones, it'd be worth it, but if you don't have questions, it seems like extra time spent.
Mr. Davis, would you mind just clarifying for me real quick? Is the signage in this application, is this mandated by Popeyes as part of your franchise agreement, or do you have any leeway or flexibility with how and what you
I'll let
want to
Mrs.
sign?
Stankinelli just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just my clarification.
I'm Stankinelli from Assist Engineering, 1601 Veterans Memorial Highway, Omaha, New York. These are Popeye's standard signs. They're very specific with their signage. They have over 3,000 locations across the country. Majority of the stores all have these signs.
Majority, but not all.
But not all. I can't say for sure of all. I didn't design personally all of them, but this is their standard signage package that they push on their.
I think what we're getting
franchises
at is
to get approved.
Popeyes would say no to a location if we were asked to, for example, you wouldn't need a variance if you changed one of the 3 sides a little bit. You wouldn't even need a variance from us.
That's
So there's 2 factors. you already don't meet the qualifications for, which means I personally would be able to vote yes on it for that reason.
How hard would it be to bring it into compliance? Because, I would hate not to have Popeye's chicken here, it's my favorite. I'm not gonna lie. And KFC went away, I had to have a funeral for it. So I really would love to have you here.
When you say compliance, you mean to have signs only on two sides?
Well,
Is that what you mean?
No,
I think,
make the sign small enough so we don't have to have a variance, make them in compliance.
Right.
For example, if you remove Love That
chicken.
Chicken, it would be no variance required.
Right.
I think what the board's interested is, are there any other feasible alternatives that you could,
So,
you know,
well, this might be another question, and I apologize, but I do a lot of these in different municipalities. The painting on the walls in most municipalities is not considered signage.
But it is
So-
wrong. So that's what we have to go.
So that's why we have to go through this.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I've got a much more pressing question than that.
It's huge.
Because the here copy thing, I was here for that decision. I think everyone in this room
Yeah,
was
we
here for
were.
that. And it's a different district and different, the traffic issues are different, the visibility is different. It's a non-franchise, single owner operated location versus completely different situation. So there's no relation there for me.
And it's only on one side of it.
And it's on one side versus the,
Thank you for saying that, Carl.
My question is much more basic than that.
I mean, I'm not trying to be, I'm just saying.
I'm less concerned about, unlike Kyle, I'm less concerned about the signage size than I am about the adjacent uses. So I noticed that we have not gone through who is to the north, who is to the south, who is against that property, Revolutionary Road.
Yeah,
So
so
they're all homes there, or the businesses, what's there?
perfect. I mean, I had a.
Yeah.
We could
But
skip
that's
right
not our,
right to
that's not in.
Well,
our
except that
purview.
we're looking at the environment, so I mean,
well, one of the factors is the potential impacts on the surrounding
Right.
neighborhood, so
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can consider impacts to neighboring
Yeah.
properties.
If
But
I
it's a business replacing a business.
But it's the impact of the signage on adjacent properties,
So the sign, it would be the impact of the signage. on the
Yes.
adjacent-
aesthetic impacts.
yeah.
So that's, yeah,
Right.
but we can't go.
if I could just,
It's the overall character of the neighborhood.
Right, so, but on both sides of that are two different businesses, so.
Well, I don't know that. I don't know.
Mr. Stankinelli will,
I know that there's a. lot
Let's
of that
let
on
the
both sides.
applicant make their,
he'll address everybody on this side, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to point out in the hair coffee application. Madam Chairwoman, with regarding the issue about the 166.28 square feet that they needed. You had stated a facade sign that hangs out, it is actually drawn, it's like a mural drawn right on the wall. So yes, it's 166.28 square feet variance, but it is right on the building itself. So that, what we did is based on their coffee, and you can't,
Yeah, but you're leaving out the importance of the first part, so if you're gonna use that, let's use the whole thing. The first part of that, we were talking about the artistic capacity of it being a unique design, if you read the entire conversation, I had a lot to say about it. Which is very different than predetermined Popeyes marketing franchise stuff, which I've been looking at, which is the same for everybody, minus some small variations, completely different situations. So it's not that the signage is not valid, but that argument against using one of our past decisions doesn't hold any weight.
So to answer your question.
Yeah.
Let me answer that one, because we designed
Right.
this to greatly improve the site from the existing conditions.
Right.
There's commercial on each side of us, busy street in the front, residential behind us.
Behind
The
us.
existing parking lot had parking right up to the front. We are now holding over, excuse me, I'm getting older now and I can't see the small numbers that easy. Over 34 feet, over 34-foot buffer now to the residents with evergreens and plantings. So it's gonna be a great improvement
Okay.
to the neighbors.
We didn't know what the other things were saying.
We were very, very cognizant about that, and that was one of our main goals when designing the site.
Now, the only other thing is that I've been in that building many, many times, because the jeweler's in there, I go to. That, site is actually goes down substantially, like 6 or 7 feet.
Yeah.
So
road, yeah.
are we gonna be, when we're on South Island Avenue, are we be looking at the roof? Popeye says it's 40 feet back from a
So
street.
there's two positive things about that. When we
Okay.
designed this site, we purposely pushed the building back 30, over 34 feet.
Yeah,
This way, we could keep we have enough landscaping and area in the road to grade. So we could keep the building elevated at like an average grade,
okay,
so that it's not, it's not going down. It's
Yeah.
actually going down a little bit to capture the runoff and then back up.
okay. The reason why I'm bringing it up is because as much as I'd like to see Bob get his chicken, I don't want to be looking at the smokestacks or
No.
No.
chicken smoke coming out from
Yeah.
South Island Avenue.
So
And
the
by the way,
elevation of the
application-
building is 117.4.
Mhm.
If you look at the grade in the street directly in the middle of the building, it's 115, so we're actually 2
Okay.
feet higher than.
Okay, gotcha.
And just so the board knows, this is currently also for the planning board, so they're
They're doing the
considering
traffic
all of these, we're really
Okay.
just looking at the driveway and the signage.
Gotcha.
So the planning board was comfortable enough with their plan to refer it over to you to consider the signage and the driveway.
Okay, so issues like traffic are not our,
It's not, and it's not within your purview, that's being specifically considered right now. by the
That's
planning
fine.
board.
I just want to clarify, I have no problem with Popeyes, we have a Domino's on that street, we have McDonald's, there's a Taco Bell going in, there's a 7-Eleven. I mean, it's no secret that that whole stretch is franchise and commercialized. But you do have a reasonable alternative, and I think that
I
It
think if
would-
it was in,
it would be unfortunate for you to have us vote tonight, have a negative declaration, which you can't, which will be tough to appeal, if it's made based on objective decisions versus just modifying it to be within the current code.
So that we're clear, you're okay with 2 sides? Third
That's in the
side.
code, yeah.
I think we're okay with 3 sides.
We don't have a choice in the case.
Board just wants to see, like, what are some alternatives?
If
to
there are
what's being
alternatives, if you
requested?
could do like on the one side where it says, the 100-foot, love that chicken, if there's something smaller.
Yeah.
Or if the chicken.
So
that's
then on the third
corner.
side, if we reduce, like, Love That Chicken is,
It's
they
huge.
make it big so people
I
can
know,
see it, but it's their slogan. So you're okay with it staying there, just maybe reducing it?
So whether or
That's the
not
south
I
side.
personally have a problem with their saying is not relevant because it doesn't fit within the purview. So what is relevant is the size.
Right.
That's the side.
And other Popeyes, although this is branding for most of their buildings that are standalone structures, they do have some where Love That Chicken is smaller in a different location. That would solve your issue and you wouldn't need a variance.
One of the things I would say is the reason why the code allows for 2 sides, especially on corner properties, if you're trying to get the public to see the business from 2 streets, right?
Right.
But in this case, at least one of those sides is not really facing a public street, it's facing parking.
The parking lot.
Right, which actually would be visible if you were heading westbound on South Highland.
Yeah,
That
coming
side right
coming
there.
down, I mean, I
That's
traffic.
a question, I mean,
Yeah.
if you're saying the building is set back somewhat, I don't know what the visibility is.
You'll eventually see it, it's angles, right?
Well,
When you're passing, you're gonna see that sign, and that's the whole purpose. They
If
put
the
that sign
building is
on top.
set back, the sign's not on the building, right?
It's on the
Actually
building.
have a pole.
No, the sign is
This
on.
is on the
Gonna be
building.
on the
It's actually
on the
painted.
building.
Yeah.
Which is what I'm saying, because you see that that's the side that's facing it's not even in the first third, say, of the building facade, it's in the middle and towards the back.
Right, right. Yeah, that Love That Chicken is
So-
gonna be seen by people, that's the parking lot.
That's when
So
you're
that's
in
gonna
the
be
right.
seen by the people in the parking lot. The corner sign, which is an actual sign, is under the threshold and visible to the road.
Gee, so that's why I guess the question would be, do we want the sign that's more visible to the road versus the sign that's visible to the parking lot?
You already
Yeah.
have. The feasible alternative by code is that you just don't have it there.
Right.
And all the other logo and branding are there, and they have other locations that are like that.
Do you have? the
Taco
ability-
Bell, which is a recent construction,
Only
didn't
has-
ask for variance because they did 2 sides.
Okay.
McDonald's only has 2 sides, not even the back side, that's the Stop and Shop parking lot, Domino's, 2 sides. So why should this be different, is what I'm asking.
I would argue that it's painted on, but I know that's not an option. But
Well,
we
the
can go
question
back
with
to-
that is if you read the definition for a sign code, it says fixed to the building or painted.
I have,
We can ask, I can't make the decision. for
right,
us.
yeah, so.
I could ask them if they will be willing to reduce the Love That Chicken sign, because that's the one not seen from the street.
So my suggestion is, since you cannot make this decision yourself, you have to go back,
Yes.
right? Maybe we could adjourn this,
You're still before the planning board, Ed.
Yes.
yeah.
Well-
So that you get an answer and come back rather than go round and round.
Question.
Sure.
A lot of municipalities, so that we can continue with the project, we could sometimes even start construction, they come back for signage variances. Is that an option in this case? Would you
Can we
possibly?
separate the variances and just, vote on the?
Well, essentially, the building process anyway, they're two different type of permits. It's a building permit and signage anyway, so.
Right.
Right, so the.
So can
The
you?
purpose of why we
Two
put it in
sides,
one
one
was so
on
that
the
we didn't have to come back twice, but you can.
Well, Joe, wouldn't the planning board's private ARB approval want to see the signage though? So when you go back, I think this is something the planning board want to be able to see as part of their final determination.
And I'm two sides, not reduced logo on the third side. I'm sticking to the precedent we've already set with all the other commercial franchise properties on the road, including Taco Bell, which is still under construction.
But if we can get a feel from the board, if we came in on two sides.
And you
and-
would need a variance every time.
No, well, on one of them, we only need, what is it? Like the 2.5 feet, and then the other one about 38 feet. I mean, it's square feet, so it's not really all that much. But I would like to get a feel when we go back to the corporate client, whether if we were limited to two sides, whether, or you want us to keep on making it smaller, so we don't even have to come in for a variance, which we don't want to do.
So because Joe, what was signed was that you're asking for a sign with only two sides permitted. And the variance on one was, 3 feet, the other one was, what,
I
35?
guess the question to ask for the members is the objection more of the three sides or the size?
Three sides, because if none of them have three sides and this has three sides, that's a precedent.
Right.
He's using Here Coffee, which is in a completely different side of town, in a different district.
And
as-
only has two sides.
and only has two sides as a reason for this. So if there's a franchise location or any commercial location with three sides, boom, precedent is set. And that is something that I'm not comfortable with, because there's no real reason to do it other than the applicant's need and not the property's need, which is where variance is looked at.
And does the rest of the board feel that way? Because my sense during some of this conversation was it wasn't so much the small Popeye's chicken on the corner, more as the large Love That Chicken.
Large
So if the
logo, if you
board-
just remove the logo, it makes sense to approve it if it's required because it's so minimal, or they don't require a variance. I don't know the.
Well, this is actually, if I'm correct, this property actually faces onto two streets, correct? There's a corner.
It's a corner lot, isn't it?
It's not,
really.
it's not.
There's only three properties, it's visible.
Well, no, because my
Where-
question would
where
be,
the
is the
access
side
to
that's
the
facing
corner.
the parking lot, the
Tabasco.
side that's being
Right.
removed, you're really putting the signage, I guess, in the front, the side, and to the right.
But we're getting a minutia over this
Yeah,
one
that's what-
case, but
That was the-
this is not the first time someone has used precedent as like a,
Well, I
Yeah.
think,
you did it, and I
I think
just
the
don't.
issue is, and only in this case, because it is visible north and south on South Helen Avenue and in the front. So whereas Taco Bell is more like you're passing through, Domino's
Yeah.
is, but this is kind of that one property that kind of jets out just a little bit on both sides. Tabasco's on the corner, so that's big enough to
Normally,
see.
business.
The laundromat is on the corner, so it has two sides, but this is kind of,
When normally businesses doing that is they put a freestanding sign that faces both sides. And that's how you see it.
That's what
That's how
happened
you
with
see
the
it.
view, and we voted it down, but because the property line was further back and it was actually controlled by New York State DOT, it overruled our decision. So that in the past for signage, we've been very strict for that reason, because as soon as you open the floodgates, everyone just, and it's already happened on some other.
So they could have a two-sided pole sign if they want.
Yeah, because you're
Yeah.
allowed to have a
you're
freestanding
standing
sign.
sign, right?
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying, there's feasible alternatives, and there's more than.
But by,
I've seen that sign in several locations, the pole, and that's what I assumed was going to happen here, was the pole with the sign, with the big sign.
And if the concern is to be able to see it when you're coming north or south on Highland Avenue, freestanding sign, that you don't need a variance at all, as long as you go by the signs.
so then the question is, do we, would you look at a freestanding sign that you could see on both sides in the front? And then, even if you had one side of the building,
Or, yeah,
Or-
it's,
right, so that so we're asking for alternatives. And, we can give you some like alternatives here or things that we're talking about, but a freestanding sign, smaller, or two sides, or like, we're asking you to come back with something that, almost,
Easier for us to.
right, or it takes it off the table totally, because if you're already in compliance with the zoning, then we're not looking at having to go
If
down.
if we were talking about two sides and one was 2.26 square feet, and then the other one was approximately 38 square feet, and we just had the chicken logo.
that
On
was,
the left
that's within
and the third
precedent
side?
of things we voted on before.
Right, but those are things that we're asking you to kind of come back with, we're looking at, we've kind of thought about it, looked at it, narrowed it down. I don't want us to get to one of the, 5 factors and say it's like way outside of our, limit of, having to say,
So alternatives that might reduce the magnitude of the variance request. is,
Yeah.
I think, what the board is saying.
And just to echo, like, one of the 5 factors is whether the benefit can be achieved by some other feasible method, and if there's so many feasible methods that can be discussed, it's so clear.
so we're just asking that, kind of. And I think it would also help with the other boards, because then if we're discussing, I'm sure that they're gonna have similar discussions.
So is there anything we can approve tonight so that they have that cleared, like the, driveway?
We can do the driveway.
Yeah.
But I still have to open the public hearing. So, thank you, gentlemen. If there's no objection, I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on sorry, it's. No objection.
Olga.
Seconded, Mike. There you go.
Okay, if there's no objection, then the public hearing is now open. Is there anyone in the audience to speak on this project? Is there anyone on Zoom to speak on this project? If, since there is no one in the audience and or on Zoom to speak on this project, I am going to, I think we have to adjourn the public
Yes.
hearing.
Motion to
A
adjourn.
motion to adjourn the public hearing, but I believe we can talk about the parking. And, so I'd like a motion to,
Adjourn.
no. I'd like a motion to just discuss the parking portion of this,
The driveway.
the driveway, well, yeah, driveway portion or the area.
The
that
driveway
is set back.
setback.
The setback for the driveway only at this time.
But you still need to adjourn the public hearing.
The
I
public
did.
hearing is still
Oh.
open though.
The public
We
hearing
haven't
is
voted,
open.
yeah.
That's
So
okay.
I'd like to motion to adjourn the public hearing till next month.
Your
So-
name.
Bob.
So moved, Kyle, or second, Kyle.
If there's no objection, the public hearing is now adjourned until we get further information. Now, may I have a motion to
Are we just doing the 5
Or just
factors?
doing the 5,
the 5 factors for
the driveway. Okay.
just the,
Before we get to that though, is this
I
property,
mean, the setback.
this property, been posted? Yes, signage?
Everything's been noticed.
Yeah.
We know this, okay.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. So the first factor the board must consider is whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties.
I would, sorry, I would say no, it does look better than what's there now, I drive there every day, but also the driveway itself is similar to what McDonald's has right down the road, and they're very tight spots. So I'd say no.
I also have to say that they're actually bringing the, though it's on one side, the setback is really on one side. It is actually almost pre-existing, so they're really not changing much.
Okay, The next factor is whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by a feasible alternative to the variance.
And on this, no, because we looked at the property lines and they can't go onto the side road because it's not through their property, so it's not.
Agreed, they're doing the best they can with what they got.
And they're not really changing the property of though the building is smaller, the surrounding parking in the area is going to remain pretty much the same.
The next factor is whether the requested variance is substantial.
So it's a 5-foot setback,
No, it's a 2 foot.
2-foot setback, sorry. I was giving them whole 5 feet.
No.
It's not substantial.
It's not.
That's
The next factor is whether the variance would have an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood.
Since we're not talking about parking or the traffic study, since we can, since the planning board had already passed it on to us, I would say no.
I think it's only gonna improve it.
yes.
It's gonna look more open if the building is being set back and, right now it's pretty much up to the curb.
And the building will be shorter and smaller, so it'll look more open.
Right, it'll look larger.
So the positive aesthetic impact.
Yes.
And,
And obligated chicken.
and
Yes.
Hamilton's chicken.
Easy
And
money.
the final factor is whether the wedge of difficulty was self-created.
I'm gonna say yes, but it's not determinative
Yes.
because,
Not
they do have options for not having a drive-through, but under the current models and financial projections as part of this property, not having a drive-through would probably make the project not
Right.
viable.
So driveway is also largely an existing condition.
Yeah.
With that being said, may I have a motion to approve this, the
So moved,
setback
Olga.
Second, Bob.
and roll call vote?
Okay, Kyle Alvarez,
Aye.
Olga Montez,
Aye.
Michael Spall.
Aye.
Bob Dwyer,
Aye.
and Sherrick Cheatham.
Aye. Okay, so with that said, we did do just.
Thank you very much. If you could, when is the next meeting?
Next
Is there a
month.
date? Oh,
Second Tuesday. of the
The
month.
second, it's always the second Tuesday of the month.
okay, thank you. Happy holidays.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays.
So it's January 9th. Motion
may
to
I
adjourn the application.
may I have a motion to adjourn the application?
So moved, Kyle.
Seconded. Go ahead, Mike. No, go ahead.
Second.
All those in favor of adjourning the application?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Sorry, I had
So
to.
motion to, application adjourned until January to discuss this line.
You done with the unanimous consent?
I didn't do that. Next on our agenda is ZBA 25-2023 40 Iroquois Road. Christopher and Susan Galata.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Greg Mercurio. I'm a registered landscape architect, and I've been retained by the Galata family for the design of their rear yard, which is a small in-ground swimming pool. So we're here this evening for a request of a 5-foot variance in the rear yard of this property. It's a particularly small residential lot. It is in zone S50. The square footage on this lot is less than 0.2 acres. I believe it's a 0.17 acres. 7,618 square feet for the entire property. The front yard is about 63 feet wide, and the side yards are each about 121 feet, rectangle here. Design wise, the pool is in the rear yard. We're meeting the side yard setback on each side of the rear yard. And design wise, we went through a few different iterations because of the size of the property to get us to the point we're at today. So kind of a typical rectangular swimming pool is a 20 by 40 rectangular swimming pool. We have this pool at 32 by 14. Couple other elements that we like to do around the pool is a walkway around the pool about 4 or 5 feet. And to kind of squeeze this pool into the rear yard with a little bit of lawn space between that and the rear patio. We reduced that walkway around the pool to 30 inches, just so they have somewhere to walk around the edge of the pool and not walk in the lawn. And that's really all I have. I do have some other photos of the rear yard that may or may not be in the set that you guys have. And the Galatas went around also and spoke with their neighbors who received things. So we did receive quite a few, even though they might not be here this evening, about 12 letters from the neighbors.
Can you take that now to have some?
So we generally only go by what's submitted, prior to the meeting.
Yeah, I like
So
to like to hold them up and say we got them. And
Sorry, I was just admiring the dog here.
that's everyone's favorite.
Can I ask one question? What's the distance, it's not shown on your plan, from the patio to where the pool's gonna be? Like, how much lawn space?
Yeah, great question. Well, from the rear step of the existing flagstone patio, currently from that to the pool is 20 feet.
Oh, so that lawn area you would have is 20 feet from.
But
From where those
Well,
neighbors are. We're proposing it to be 20 feet I guess I'm saying to the edge of the walkway. So yeah, it's about 20 feet from the back of the patio to the pool. So that's the amount of lawn space that we have between the back of the flagstone patio and the pool.
So we've seen above ground pools, we've seen in-ground pools, we've seen safety issues, all of that. Most of them require a variance because the property is restricted, but in this case, why not just move the pool 5 feet closer to the house and not require a variance at all?
Well, we would be asking, so first of all, the pool's a lot smaller, so we've already kind of like reduced that 5 feet by kind of cutting it off the pool. So the design reason is to have this like reasonable little rear yard space of a lawn in the backyard.
So
But you
one of the
can still have
questions
a
we
15
legally have
foot.
to answer is whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by feasible methods other than the area variance, because granting variances is only when required. And so if you're not on one of those properties where the pool is up against the property line, you literally have nowhere to go, that's a different story. In this case, while we can empathize with the fact that you've already shrunk it to meet the side yards, if you move it 5 feet into the yard, you don't need a variance.
Correct. I mean, again, but that continues to shrink down. So in other words, if we were to do that, it would be 13 feet between the back step and the edge of the patio there, or 15 feet between the back of the
Right, so we're saying 15 feet between the back of the patio.
and the pool.
And that mean no variance.
Because and it's for two reasons, not because, excuse me for saying so, not because I'm trying to be a hard ass, but when you look at all the pools that are in ground, not the above ground ones, in that neighborhood, none of them are within 5 feet. So even if the neighbors are like, hey, this is good, the variance lives with the property, not the owners. So the owners could be the best people in the world, but whoever inherits that property or buys it in the future now owns that variance with that property. So if there's not a reason for the variance because there's a feasible alternative, legally, I have to vote no.
I just also want to remind the board that it is a balancing test. You have to weigh the benefit to the applicant against the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood at large. So a finding of one of the factors is not dispositive of the entire action. It's the
It's-
totality of the circumstances.
That's just
To remind the board of the test.
To give you examples, undesirable change or detriment to nearby properties can be setting a precedent that alters the character of the neighborhood for future
Yes.
variance requests. That would be a no for me, or something in the negatives.
Which one was that? Was that the first question?
Yes.
So this proposed request for a variance you're saying would cause an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood?
So it's not that the pool is an issue, it's that you are setting a precedent for everyone in that jurisdiction to use, just like they tried to use with us in the last one. Where, oh, well, now they've done it, the next person that comes and requests it will say, you have to do this because they set the precedent.
Right.
And that happened before with us with the front yard parking, which I voted no on, then was told, you can't vote no on it because the prior board voted yes on something similar. And so precedent setting is really important because it's not about just that.
I understand that the precedent setting, I would assume, would be predicated on the idea that the properties are equal and the proposals are equal in a sense.
Not necessarily.
Not
These are
necessarily.
two different buildings, two different districts, two different cases, and yet they were using it as precedents.
Yeah.
And that just happened today. I mean,
Well, also to
But
consider.
it wasn't used as precedent though, because
because I put my research in.
And I can interrupt everybody. It's real important that only one person speak at a time. Jamie is struggling very hard to keep track of what everyone's saying for the minutes. So
One of the things I would say is you're in an S75, right? So 75, that's 50,
yeah,
but your total property size is,
7,000.
which is more than the minimum requirement of that district, right? It's not like you have an undersized lot that causes the problem. You have a proper sized lot in that district.
And the cover letter also cites topography as one of the challenges.
But we couldn't, I didn't see that, so I didn't. That was my question, what was the topography that was at issue?
The topography, I don't know about the topography, it's just the dimensions more so of the property, not so much the topography of the property.
I went by the cover letter said there was a problem with the.
It says, and the lot size and topography you're
Right.
requesting.
Well, I don't think the topography has anything to do with it, it's the lot size more so.
So I have a question. Would you be left with no area to walk through if you did do what the board is suggesting at moving it 5 feet closer?
I mean, it would push the pool area further into the center of the yard and not as tight to the privacy fence and existing forsythia hedge that we have there. So the idea is that like, if we were looked in closer, 5 feet closer, so now we're still 10 feet away from the property line with a thick, if you were to go back to that photo showing the hedge in the back. To me, I think the closer you are to that evergreen forsythia hedge and fence back there, I think that's just gonna reduce the amount of sound traveling, back beyond to the rear property line. So those hedges, that's the picture that I wanted to show is that hedge right there. So instead of being, 15 feet from that, like again, like 15 feet for a lot this size is a lot of space. So we're just kind of like for real no reason other than just to meet that setback, pushing this pool, which is already an undersized pool, out into the middle of the yard where it doesn't really belong, in my opinion, as a designer. Does kind of 10 feet is an acceptable distance considering the construction of the stockade fences back there and the existing hedge. If there was like, you don't even know there's a neighbor behind it. So a lot of this thinking went into it, and we did, like I said, try different iterations of the design, but looking at the big picture and the size of the lot and everything else, this is the best design that we came up with, that we thought that would work best for the client. And just from the feedback that we got from the neighbors we did hear from, and my past experience and precedence with other zoning boards, that the neighbors' opinions carried a lot of weight. And
I understand all that. My question was, is there a reason that what the board is suggesting would not work for the property owners? Is there?
it's a waste of space. It's really essentially, it's a useless, in my opinion. I just think, yes, black and white, move it 5 more feet. Yes, you don't have to ask for this variance. But again, it's kind of like big picture, design wise, size of the lot, what's going on with the neighbors, the existing fencing and plantings that they have, which they're not going to remove. It seemed like a reasonable request to come before the guys, otherwise we wouldn't.
Just turning back to the neighbors really quickly, I know that you submitted a bunch of letters in support from neighbors, but what I just wanted to ask is, did you reach out to the neighbors at the rear yard? Did you receive a
Haven't
letter?
reached out to any neighbors, no, so I'm not sure if
Sure, yeah.
the Galatas have.
Our pool builder was on Zoom, sent the certified letter to everybody. Okay. That's a big apartment building, so I don't know everybody that.
The other thing I would say is the further out into the lawn you have, and if you look at that last photo you show, like, that pool is gonna be more visible the further you move it away from that screening and that fence. So in terms of like being the neighbor to the other side, I would probably say the less of that pool that I saw would be a benefit to me in this sense, rather than pushing it out into the middle of that green
So what
space.
you're saying is the second floor window I see there,
Yes,
to be able to see the people in the pool,
yeah,
where now they may not be able to see it. If it's-
correct.
Well, the house is on either side of it. I can see the back pool anyway. It's a preference. It's not a need.
It's
And
not,
that's why this is gonna, I don't see a reason for me to vote yes
I think-
personally.
Again, it's a balancing test from the strict application of the zoning code. And so I think the board needs to keep in mind the totality of the 5 factors here.
When we get there, I'll give my reasons for each one.
I'll mention one thing, our pool builders on Zoom. Would you mind coming up to the podium?
Just a-
Sorry, please just state your name for the record. and
Yeah, my
address.
name's Susan Galata. I'm the homeowner with my husband Chris. Our pool builder helped with the permit because we know nothing about any of this. But when they mentioned topography, I think part of the issue is right where our patio ends. You can't see it in the photographs, but there's like at least a 1 foot grade down, and they said that that would cause possibly is it runoff. I don't know, like moving the pool further back would be better in terms of the topography because of the grading of the.
Would you like us to bring the pool? I don't know who it is.
Yeah, Kevin is on there. He might be able to speak on that particular point.
Okay.
And also,
And then, I mean, the other reason I know you don't, maybe it's just preference and that doesn't matter, but we are thinking about future generations who buy our home down the road and 15 feet of grass space is like really nothing. It's maybe 4 rows of chairs and then it's like a long strip. Adding that extra 5, like tremendous, in terms of usable space. The other side of the pool by our backyard neighbor is not usable already really because we've got forsythia. And we let it grow wild and a lot of wildlife lives in there, birds and stuff, so. Having like a 5-foot strip of grass on that side of the pool is kind of hard to, it's kind of just a waste of space, like Greg said. Okay.
Can you hear me or
We can do this.
am I good to speak?
state your
Hello?
name.
Kevin Cohen, with Nejam and Sons Pool Company. And, we did play with a few different designs and one of the reasons we pushed it more towards the rear, not only do you keep more of the yard, which would attract future home buyers and would go more with the town layout and with the properties to have more lawn space, but also for drainage to make sure we have a little swale in between the pool so the patio runs off one way. And after their current patio, there's about a 1 to 15-inch grade difference to the grass line that would run off another way. And we have a little area where the water would run, in between so it doesn't puddle up. Another reason is if you do bring it closer and bring in more patio that way, because they would lose patio space on the side now because they're coming further away from the fence line, then you would possibly need a small retaining wall adjoining that flagstone patio where it ends to kind of hold the grade where they're coming out of the Bilko doors.
Are you talking about the left side of that plan right there on the corner of the existing flagstone patio? It says 413.02. Yeah, that transition, there's a transition there, and then the Bilko doors is 413.58. It's kind of like micro grading, which is why it didn't register to me in terms of the topography. I'm thinking of big grade changes. It's a smaller grade change, but the shifting of the pool gives you a little bit more wiggle room to slope. And like Kevin was saying, I guess the water's got to pitch away from the pool, right? And it's also got to pitch away from the patio. So we do have to create, a space or a swale for the water to move around the pool. So I believe that's what they were alluding to during that.
So where it says stockade fence there with the A symbol,
Yes,
that patio would actually move forward towards the existing flagstone patio. If the pool was to move forward. So-
yes, so that
They all-
and the rest of the pool patio.
So they would almost be touching them.
Correct.
Okay.
Is the patio that they're doing around the pool, is that pervious or impervious?
That's what I was gonna ask.
It's gonna be Unilon, with kind of open joints on stone dust, so, that's.
Well, I mean,
Impervious.
that would help in the drainage, right? Because the water's gonna.
Yeah, we still have to pitch it away from the pool.
But it's a very small pitch. It's not even a foot of pitch over that distance.
But it's only 20 feet of a distance, so it's not like it's a 200-foot run, it's a 20-foot run, so I guess it's just a matter of, like I said, it's a micro, it's a small grading thing, but when you're out there in the space, it just kind of needs to be addressed, and shifting the pool back, even those 5 feet makes a big difference in terms of the slope of the lawn and how to deal with the water that moves around.
Does the gutters themselves from the existing structure discharge near that flagstone patio?
I think it goes around, the drainage.
The gutter goes right here by the Bronco doors.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that. And there's like a hill.
Are there any other questions from the board? If there's no other questions from the board, thank you. I have a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved by.
May I have a second?
Second, Brian.
No, can't second.
Oh, God.
Seconded by Olga. Yeah, may have, did I just ask for motion? No, okay.
We did that.
All those, if I, okay.
We're in the public.
Okay, no, all in favor of opening the public hearing?
I,
Okay, so by unanimous consent, the public hearing is now open. Is there anyone in the audience to speak on this project? Is there anyone on Zoom to speak on this project? Seeing none, may I have a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved by.
Seconded, Kyle.
The public hearing is, if there's no objection, the public hearing is now closed.
Ready?
Yes, for a 5-foot setback. Yes,
Yeah, because they have to be 15 feet in distance, you know.
So 5 foot setback is required, or 5 foot variance, excuse me, is required.
is required, yes.
All right. So the first factor the board to consider is whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties.
There are other pools in the neighborhood, so I don't necessarily think this changes the character in terms of that consideration. But it does set a precedent that the other properties haven't met, and so we will be obligated to consider that for future requests. So, yes.
And I'm going to say no. Only,
Qualified to say.
I know. Only because, in listening to both sides of the argument and hearing what the, architect and the pool, company have both said, putting the pool where it is, actually would help with not only the drainage, the topography, the neighbors, and actually cause, if having it in a place where it would be less of an impact on the neighborhood, versus moving it up to 5 feet that we have been looking at.
I agree with Marlene.
I agree with Bob and Molly.
Okay. The next factor is whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by a feasible alternative to variance.
I think this is clearly yes. By moving it there, they have more property than we've seen in pool variance requests before that have had similar issues, and there is an alternative that's feasible.
That I have to agree with. There is an alternative. It may not be the best alternative, but yes, there is an alternative.
But it's a feasible alternative.
It
to
is a
water
feasible-
waters.
It's feasible but not optimal.
Yes.
Because of the conditions you just listed in the first
Yes.
factor. Okay, the next factor is whether the requested variance is substantial.
I think it's numerically significant at 33%, 5 feet, but I don't think it is substantial.
Agreed.
What is I don't think it's actually, I know it's numerically significant, but it's not substantial.
Right.
Determined that.
The impacts resulting from the
Yeah, the
variance
impacts,
aren't
the
substantial
impacts are not substantial.
in reality.
Yeah.
So the next factor is whether the variance would have an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood.
There's already pools in the neighborhood, so I don't think so.
So I have to address what was been discussed during the meeting, which is no, there's no adverse effect in terms of wetlands. There's no adverse effects in terms of another property owner's property line. But by creating the possibility for runoff where one didn't exist before and making that a consideration of our decision is a physical or environmental condition. There's no pool runoff. And now there will be pool runoff with chlorinated water, and they're using it as a reason they want to push it further from the house because of the grade. The slope, whereas that problem,
Runoff with, or rainwater runoff with the disturbance of not having the surface of wet drainage. So, but they are putting in impervious,
pervious.
pavers and trying to help mitigate some of that, rain runoff that would be happening.
And the final factor is whether the alleged difficulty was self-created.
I think even though 5 is not determinative, 5 goes with feasibility of alternative methods. While the property is restricted, a swimming pool is not required, and moving at 5 feet puts them within code. So it is self-created.
So when considering the totality of the factors, the board must make its decision based on this discussion.
Feels like a split decision.
I think based on the totality of everything that we've looked at, there is some wiggle room as to whether we're kind of leaning one way or the other, but I believe that looking at all 5 factors, we have way more in agreement with this decision than we have with the factors that were kind of wavering on. So I think we are leaning to look to approve this application. And we may have a roll call vote.
Yeah, motion to approve it, the variance.
The 5.
Or you make
Yeah,
a motion?
Seconded, Mike.
Okay, roll call. Lola Montez,
Aye.
Kyle Aberrizzi,
Because I identified 4.5 out of 5, I have to vote no.
Michael Spall.
Aye.
Bob Doreo,
Aye.
Chair Cheatham.
Aye.
Thank you.
That's how it goes. It's always
You knew you were gonna be told.
I'm sorry, I'm doing my job.
To be truthful, the whole time I'm thinking, what if we split the difference and just approve the 2.5, but I didn't want to open up another half-hour discussion.
Yes, thank you very much.
Like I said, way more people lie about the property tax records, and those are real
Remember,
differences.
before you leave this building, that you cannot do anything until the building department has gotten the paperwork and the resolution back. Secondly, this was done with reservation, and I'm gonna tell you what swayed me, and I'm going to give you this upfront, was your pool person who actually came with the information that was in your letter that actually gave us more information than what we said, so that was very important.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Good night, Kevin. Thank you.
You're all invited.
Thanks, Kevin.
Next up is 6 Meadowbrook Drive, DBA 262023, Teresa Procassi is the owner. Hello, Mr. Howard.
JB, this is, I believe, one of the easier ones, so thank you.
Applicant is making an
We don't
area
say it.
setback
That's a good thing.
I know, but it's.
construction for a rear yard deck.
And a front, and front yard also.
Right,
But the front yard wasn't unfortunately noticed due
The
to an
front yard is not
administrative
noticed, so it's only the rear yard.
error. So all we can approve tonight is the rear yard.
The front yard was not noticed.
okay.
So the only thing we can talk about today is rear yard. Now, if I come back and.
You see, Kyle?
Oh, I'm sorry. I had to-
I think the comment was based on the fact that it was only the.
Okay. Oh, okay. And I may make a point of reference before we begin.
Right.
This home was in the Black Klansman movie.
Oh,
It needs a sign.
How cool.
Sparta's done.
Spike Lee movie.
I love driving through that section in the morning with all the vintage buses on the corner.
I've read through this and I don't have questions, so you'll hear from me until it's both.
Can I ask a question to Mr. Hernandez? Back that this is under construction. Is it beneficial at this point to just get a vote to do the deck in the meantime, right at the front? Because I know this is, okay.
Yeah, I would like to, if we can get a vote on what is being.
Well,
And you'll just have to
because
come
this,
back
well,
with-
this project is way advanced. at this
Yeah.
point. Okay.
Okay, this is 6 Meadowbrook. I guess we will only be talking about the proposed deck in the rear. We are replacing the existing deck and enlarging it. The portion that is being enlarged is not affected by the setbacks. It's only the part that we are reconstructing. And that'll be a rear yard of, we asking for 3 feet in a rear yard. Again, I think it meets all the categories. We provided pictures and you have elevations of the property. That's the front porch, yeah, that's the rear.
If I'm correct, I think though, just to see the layout or the survey of it, it's not the entire deck.
Yes.
Right, that's what I was saying, that we're reconstructing the deck and only the area, the first corner.
I think it was
But
just
if we
one
can go
corner
back-
of it.
It's like inches.
Yeah.
We can go back.
So this matches the existing deck.
Well, we're not looking, the whole deck is not within the setback, it's a corner.
It's like a corner of the.
So they're lengthening it, which they don't need a
Yeah, I think
variance
it's
on.
the second sheet. Sorry.
The second sheet, okay.
And this is hard to see, but it's that tiny
Yeah, I think that's.
little
oh,
corner.
Gotcha.
That's the only reason.
Right there you go.
So, right there,
It's the
yeah,
land.
so you only.
It's a
see that
3
little
foot
corner.
variance.
Right.
3 foot variance, but only
that
on
one
that tiny
corner.
corner.
As you can see, the.
And the
setback
parking
line is
stairs.
like touches the stairs and that. And actually mostly the stairs.
Because of the shape of the lot.
And there's the stairs underneath, so it'll be harder to move that instead of stairs. Right.
More than any questions?
Okay, if there are no questions from the board, may I have a motion to open a public hearing?
So moved over.
Second, Bob.
If, by unanimous consent, if there's no objection, the public hearing is now open. Is there anyone on Zoom, because there's nobody in the audience, that is here to discuss this property? If there is none, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved, Bob.
Second tile.
Is it adjourn or close? Because-
No, it's gonna have to be closed because the other one is a new application for the front yard rate.
Well, it's not a new application.
It's not a develop, it just wasn't, it's within the application, it just wasn't noticed. So the referral letter has the front yard variance and so does the applicant's materials. It wasn't published in the notice, so we're gonna have to renotice it, but it doesn't have to be approved.
Okay, so are we adjourning the public
You
hearing?
can adjourn the public hearing and you can vote on the rear yard setback
Right.
variance.
So I have a motion to adjourn the public hearing?
Got you.
To adjourn, Bob.
Seconded Kyle.
And if there's, no objection, the public hearing is now adjourned. what they said.
Something's not late, Harvey, come on. All right, so,
And so, let us go through the factors for just the rear yard.
just the rear yard. All right, so the first factor is whether the variance would cause an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or be a detriment to nearby properties.
No, and in this zone, it's specifically not the only time we've done the spread deck on an angle for a corner and some stairs. It's virtually the same as some other ones we've seen. So I think that-
Okay, and then whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by a feasible alternative to the variance.
Yes, but I don't really think it's determinative because the right side of the deck where the stairs are coming off is at the same place where the current deck is, and they could move the stairs, but I doesn't make sense.
Or cut off the side of the deck. Property.
Okay, the next factor is whether the requested variance is substantial.
3 feet, no.
No.
Okay, and then whether the variance would have an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood.
No,
Not at all.
no.
Okay, and finally, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created.
Only by Jamie.
Yes, but not, it's not determinative.
Okay. So,
With that being said, may I have a motion to approve just the rear yard, deck setback, so, that is proposed today.
Motion to approve, Olga.
Second, Bob.
A roll call.
Olga Montez,
Aye.
Kyle Aberrezek,
I,
Michael Spall.
Aye.
Bob Durayo,
Aye.
Chair Cheatham.
Aye. Please note, and I'm going to say this again, do not start anything until this has been signed off from the, building department, and they will notify you when your, permit is approved or ready to go, or whatever.
So,
Yes, we are.
we'll have to clarify.
So you'll have to come back.
So you don't have to do anything. We're gonna handle the renoticing, because it was a village error, not an applicant error.
Right.
So we'll see you in January.
We'll see you in
Yeah.
January.
And
we'll talk
about how you want to go forward with the permit, because it's gonna be pieced. Unless you're gonna wait for the resolution, you're gonna have a second resolution for the front.
Right.
So we'll talk about it.
Thank you. Now we can go to the movie.
Have a Merry Christmas.
I did.
happy holidays.
Last on our agenda for tonight is ZBA 27-2023, which is Water Street, Central Avenue, Main Street, Village of Ossining. Is the owner, applicant is seeking variances for the size of the proposed parking spaces within a parking structure and for exceeding the maximum 6% grade permitted within the 25 feet of the street line. Is there anyone online, because there's nobody in the building, to speak on this application? Hello, hello, hello.
Yes, there is. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Jim Wendling. I'm with WBP Development. I'm joined by my colleague, Chris Hahn, as well as Michael Caruso from Cuddy and Feder. And just because I think it's important every time I'm before the public with respect to Ossining, I just want to give you a brief update on where we are with this project. As you know, it's a 109 unit affordable housing development. We were before you in 2022 multiple times for the variances that we sought for this development. Since we've last been before you, we have a signed brownfield cleanup agreement from the New York State DEC, which was a big step in the process to move this job along or move this project along. And we're nearly done with our discussions and agreements with Con Ed, which is required to documents which are required to execute to allow us to move forward. So since we've last been before you over the past year, we've been working on advancing our plans. And that's one of the reasons we're before you now with respect to these two variances, as the plans have developed and we've been dealing with the existing conditions and soil conditions and steep slopes. The plans have developed, and that's the reason why these two variances have emerged. We've also worked on the Greenway extension, the plans for the Greenway extension, which is one of the public benefits of this development. So all very exciting. Our team is very excited to be moving forward on this project, and it's taken a lot of hard work, and it's taken a while to get to this point, but we see the finish line, which is a shovel in the ground, not finish line of completion, but we're excited about that. So we're seeking 2 minor variances again, which have emerged as we've further developed the plans. And with that, I will turn it over to Mike, and he can go over. I know our submission was thorough, but I'll turn it over to Mike at this point, and then we'll answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you, Jim. Famous last words. I'll be brief. For the record, we're here on a duly noticed public hearing on this variance application. So Michael Caruso, Cuddy and Fader for Wilder-Walter Development LLC. As fully detailed in our November 16th submission, we go through the hardship analysis for the board, and we lay out the bases for the 2 area variances we're requesting as they relate to code sections 30A4, 30A6. And as Jim had detailed, these are issues that came up, as we're getting closer toward the building permit application. So as you may have recalled, we've appeared before the board for area variances. Those area variances were granted with respect to the structure, the uses, the configuration, back in February 7th of 2023. As Jim had mentioned, there's a host of benefits that the structure and the parking offer the village, including 45 additional public parking spaces, in addition to the building's location between the features that we've outlined in our letters and all the submissions. So fast forward to here, the building inspectors now determined that certain parking spaces have a building column that encroaches into a portion of the parking space. And if the ZBA would like a visual, I'm happy to share screen if that would help, if that functionality is available.
Mike, we can share screen on our end for you, so I'll get that pulled up.
Okay. So the functionality of the parking spaces is not impacted whatsoever by the columns. The engineers have determined that the methodology for building the garage, casting in place versus bringing in precast pieces, requires relocating and the changed orientation of the columns. And also that we have a slightly steeper grade onto the 4th level of the parking structure. So what happens is near a little more than half of the parking spaces are affected, and they're not affected on both sides. And really the vehicle, you'll be able to enter and utilize the vehicle's trunks, doors with 0 impact on functionality. The only difference being that on one side where there is a parking column, there's an 8-inch deviation from the minimum 9 foot. Functionally the equivalent of what we had proposed before, just looks a little different, and the construction methods have changed slightly on the engineering. So from 9 feet.
Mike, could you just pause for 1 second? Maddie, should we see the image now, or the rendering?
Oh, not yet.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Sorry, Mike, keep going.
Not a problem. So what we're seeking a variance from is from the 9-foot width requirement. We are not seeking a variance for the depth of the parking spaces or for the parking aisles where the vehicles will negotiate between the parking spaces. They'll all have the other minimum requirements that they need to for safe ingress and egress. So we'll be able to maintain the cast in place construction method, maintain the height and all the other outer dimensions. Thank you. There's the visual. And as you can see in the middle space there, those cast in place members, which appear near the front of the vehicle and near the rear of the vehicle, are not going to affect vehicles getting in and the passengers getting in and out of the cars themselves. So again, no change to the width of the parking aisles, no change to the depth of the parking spaces. The second variance we're seeking is with respect to the grade, a slight increase to get to the 4th level of the parking structure. So in this case, going from a 6% grade to a 10% grade, and we can't exceed 6 within 25 feet of the street, which is why we need the variance. And once again, this will not change the outer envelope of the structure. It won't change the dimensions. It won't change any of the footprint or any of the studied environmental impacts that have already gone through SEQR. So really, these are de minimis changes. And we discussed these at length in the November 16th submission. If the board wants me to take you through the 5 factors, I'm happy to do that. But at this time, the proposed action is still consistent with the environmental review for the entirety of the project and the previously adopted neg deck. So our request tonight respectfully would be that the board open and close the public hearing and please vote on the variances. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to field any with Jim as well.
Just, can you tell the board which, driveway we're talking, is that the one going off of Central Avenue to the parking structure? That has the grade issue?
It's the entrance to the fourth level of the parking garage on Central Avenue.
This is Mike Spall. With these reduced parking space widths, would that restrict any kind of vehicles from using those particular spots? Or do they have to be noticed or put sign in order to make sure you don't have any panel trucks or something like that trying to use those spaces up there?
No, it would not impact, it would not restrict certain cars or trucks from parking in any, no more than a 9-foot parking width would restrict, certain vehicles from parking in such a space. It would not change that element.
The second question I have is the 6 to 10% grade change that restrict any vehicles that were trying to make that corner up to the final floor?
No, we confirmed that with our civil engineer. It would not.
Would not, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Gotcha.
It's like 100, they discovered how many parking spaces on that it should be.
It's 121 parking spaces.
197.
Wow.
That's right, 121 are affected of the total of 197.
And what's our code say with regard to with?
You have to have a minimum 9-foot width.
And so it's 9 foot width, the whole thing, except for that bottom corner.
Right.
Correct.
So the doors will still be able to open. It won't affect the functionality of the space, practically speaking. Just a very small portion of
Correct.
space will be.
Yeah. The middle space best depicts the issue that we're here to discuss.
Gotcha.
Yeah, as you can see, there won't be any space, anything spatially between the vehicles as they're oriented in the parking spaces that changes, other than the placement of those pillars or columns, I should say.
Are there any other questions from the board? If there's no other questions from the board, may I entertain a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved, Bob.
Second, Kyle.
If there's no objection, the public hearing is now open. Is there anyone on Zoom to speak on this?
There is not.
If there is no one on Zoom to speak on this, then may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved, Bob.
Seconded, Olga.
If there's no objection, then the public hearing is now closed. So with that being said, I believe we can, do you want to do them separately?
That's up to the board. We can consider them together as long as you articulate in your analysis one for each factor.
I think we're open to just going down the factors and running through this.
Yeehaw, let's do it. All right. So the first factor the board must consider is whether granting the requested area variances would produce an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or cause a detriment to nearby properties.
No. And we have to give a reason. So the reason is the grade change was approved by their civil engineer. That satisfies
Right.
that for me, and it's only for the top of the garage for public parking and the columns in the spaces. It's very minor impact and only at the front and rear of the vehicles, so functionally it doesn't change anything in terms of the neighborhood character.
And my two questions regarding vehicle safety were answered. So,
And there's no aesthetic impact.
And there's no
to the
aesthetic
exterior.
impact
No.
on the outside.
I mean, if somebody has something against looking at a steeper roof, that's just a weird aesthetic.
Hard to notice.
Yeah, somebody pick out the
There
grade
is
change
issue.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you pick out the grade change? I mean, I think.
I don't know, you could see difference between 6
All right.
and 10%.
So the next factor the board must consider is whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by a feasible alternative to the requested variances.
And this, I say strongly no. We've been through this with these guys for almost 2 years and went through every part of this process. They have no wiggle room here, so I say no. There's
And I-
nowhere else to put these columns.
And I have to say, I think the columns, you know, you never know how they're gonna be constructed until you kind of look at them at the end of the day. And nobody figures in the base of the columns, but if you've been in any parking garage in the United States, you're parked next to the columns, you know that there's limited space on each side of the column, so it's not anything different than what you see around the world today.
The next factor is whether the requested variances are substantial.
I would say the number of spaces is substantial, but the size difference in the corners is not. And so I would say no.
No, and even the grade up to the fourth level, is, I don't know if you call it substantial, but I think it's significant. I don't think you would even
The
notice
impact
the
wouldn't be-
difference.
No.
driving.
I don't think I would
There's no-
feel the
there's no
difference
impact.
driving on one or the other. I wouldn't be like, oh, this is
Just,
much cheaper.
We're not going up a roll.
Mike's got some.
Just have something a little, I just have a little brain explosion that's go off. It has to do with earlier, what Kyle was talking about precedent. If we have another applicant that comes before us, that decides that they're gonna take a 9-foot space and make it an 8-foot, was it porch?
Well,
porch
luckily
space?
with this one, we're not making the spaces smaller, just an
Right.
protrusion to the corners,
Mhm.
which is different than what some people have asked us for, which is a full,
Yeah.
like, take a foot off.
Yeah, because what I was thinking was that they would say, okay, well, we can not only, you need 40 spaces in here. We'll do it, we'll make 45 by using this method.
Yeah, it's a
No, but
completely
that-
different
yeah,
type
That's
of
a,
request.
that's
That's
a
okay,
different
not
type of
what this is.
request.
Just wanted to
and
make
we
sure I know it's
would-
like.
We would have to be able to say that we would do a variance for every single space, and I don't think
Okay.
that would fly.
And each
Mike,
application is also decided on individual facts as well,
Yeah.
right? So.
Okay,
We kind of had this with the property that's supposed to go out where the nursery used to be.
that's what I was
We had a
thinking.
whole discussion on the
That's
size
what I
of
was
different
thinking.
spaces and how many they needed for the
Right,
amount
I'm
of
thinking
apartments.
that they might make them smaller in order to try to fit more in.
Also, this is a tiered garage, so you have to have columns over the floor
Okay.
as opposed to an open
Okay.
garage. where there's
Yeah.
no-
Just something went off, I just had to ask them, so.
The impact does it affect the doors and the trunk to be
No.
open, so.
Yeah.
So
Safely,
impact on functionality.
exactly.
Okay. And then the next factor is whether the variances would have an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood.
No.
Again, no.
No,
Yeah.
even that grade change, drainage has already been taken into consideration. And
I think with all the other factors that we have looked at with this particular property, this is nothing. This is just, you know, all of the outside.
To me, this feels more about like crossing the
Crossing
Ts and
Ts.
dotting the Is. It's not, I don't think.
These are not, this is not the factor.
There's no
that-
site
Yeah.
being proposed either, it's just, it's the columns and the grid.
Right.
Okay. And the last factor is whether the alleged difficulty was self-created.
no,
No.
completely topography and how close the garage has to be to let the water pass in between. It's so tight. Plus, they're cutting that whole top part of the property off the village. They even less to work with.
We're really trying to work magic with that mess of a property that it is. They're trying to.
Okay, I'll go with what they say.
Hot
Trying to
mess
bippity
for
boppity
legal.
glue it like hard.
Please
Sounds-
put hot mess, no.
Hold it together, guys.
Sorry.
It sounds like they were also informed by the building inspector about this issue, so they're doing the right thing by addressing it.
Out of the long list of things that we have approved for this particular property, to get down to a 4-foot issue with the parking space and a grade change for a ramp. And I think we've done fairly well.
Like, can I have a chair?
If there is nothing else, then I would like to entertain a motion to approve the requested variances.
So moved, Kyle.
Seconded back.
And we will take a roll call vote.
All right, Olga Montez,
Aye.
Kyle Aparizic,
Aye.
Michael Stahl,
Hi.
Chair Cheatham,
Aye,
and Bob Durrell.
Aye.
Last one.
lastly.
All right, excited to see this project.
Excellent.
Thank you. Happy holidays. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Happy holidays. Do you plan on
Happy
moving
holidays.
around in 2024, 2025?
No, 2024, definitely. Wait, actually, 2024, let's knock on wood just to make sure.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good evening.
Have a good night, everyone.
Adjourn matters, ZBA 2023-159 Main Street, I believe was the, window door.
Yeah.
And that is still,
That's, they're proposing some changes, and we're gonna have to look at it, and they have to renotice the different variances.
and I believe ZBA 12-2023 is still before the planning board.
That is correct.
And, 32 Bell Avenue, ZBA 25-2022. I think we should be talking to them about, either coming back with additional information or bringing it up in January and just making a decision.
So
They
they-
were
they
saying,
were-
hasn't it been 3 meetings? at this
It's been more than 3 meetings and they've only submitted memos. Have those memos of,
They were given those notes formally earlier today,
Okay.
so we will see them in January.
Or-
I'll be ready for you.
Yeah.
Okay. I think with that being said, that is our agenda for this evening. So may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded, Olga. We look forward to seeing you in January.
Bob, I'm gonna miss you.
happy holidays.
Thank you for your
If
service.
there's no objection, the meeting is adjourned. And you can speak to us.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hold on.
everyone. Happy holidays.